Hello there everybody, and thank you for tuning in to this short video that I have produced on behalf of the Lichfield Festival. Just like all of you and the other speakers and the organisers, I'm obviously very disappointed that we weren't able to all meet in person this week, but it's of course very understandable why the decision was taken to postpone until the autumn. Just to introduce myself, my name is Nathen Amin, and I am an author originally from West Wales, but now based in York. I was bringing my talk to Lichfield this week, where I was going to talk around the topic of my book, The House of Beaufort, the bastard line that captured the crown. And the Beauforts were a family integral in the development of English history in the 15th century. It does appear, or it did appear to myself, that the Beaufort family were often featured only as supporting characters in other people's story, and very little had been written about this particular family from their own perspective, from their own viewpoint. Rather, we often see them through the eyes of people such as Richard III or, Edward IV, Henry Tudor, other people. Now, most people will, of course, have heard of Margaret Beaufort, who is by far the most famous member of this particular family, but not much else is known of her fellow family members. Now, the original group, the original foursome who became known as the Beauforts, were born as illegitimate children in the 1370s to John of Gaunt and his mistress Catherine Swynford. John of Gaunt was one of the most powerful men in Europe at the time, a prince of England no less, whereas Catherine Swynford was a foreign-born member of his nursery. Together, during the 1370s, they had 4 children, 3 boys and 1 girl, and they were given the name Beaufort. Now, the girl of that original foursome is a very interesting character and possibly my favourite of all of the Beauforts. Her name was Joan Beaufort. Now, Joan was an illegitimate daughter, and even though she was the daughter of a prince, a very wealthy duke, she was still illegitimate. So she was married at the age of 14 to a Staffordshire gentleman named Robert Ferrers, and together they had 2 children. Now, her life may have faded into obscurity if it hadn't been for a remarkable decision her father made when she was 18 years old, and that was to marry her mother, Catherine. This was a remarkable decision, and it received a lot of attention in England at the time, for it was simply unheard of for a man, a royal man as powerful as John of Gaunt, to marry his mistress. But it did have far-reaching effects and drastically changed the life of their daughter, Joan Beaufort. She was now legitimised through her parents' marriage and therefore became a fully fledged member of the English royal family. Now, the year that she was made a legitimate member of that royal family, her first husband died, and she was remarried to a chap called Ralph Neville, of a better standing than her first husband, an influential northern lord. Now, something else that changed Joan Beaufort's life at this time was that 2 years later, in 1399, her eldest half-brother, Henry of Bolingbroke, usurped the throne of England and became King Henry IV. Therefore, at the age of 20 years old, within just the space of a few years, Joan Beaufort had gone from being an illegitimate daughter of a duke to a fully fledged member of the English royal family, legitimised, the wife of a powerful northern lord, and the half-sister of a king. Her life had changed considerably. Now, because she was legitimised, her husband Ralph and Joan together started making decisions that would have a great impact on English history during the 15th century. And one of those decisions was to disinherit Ralph Neville's family, his children he had from his first marriage, in favour of the children that Joan and Ralph had together. Joan was looking out for her own children, and by disinheriting them, she was making her Neville Beaufort children the most powerful figures in Northern England. They would inherit all of those famous northern castles that we know of, such as Sheriff Hutton, Middleham, Richmond. And it was a plan that worked. Through Ralph Neville and Joan Beaufort, their children included some of the most famous Yorkist names of that century, including Warwick the Kingmaker, Edward IV, and Richard III. When we hear the name Beaufort, we often think of them as members of the Lancastrian royal family during the Wars of the Roses, but all of Joan's grandchildren were Yorkists. In fact, I would probably say that the very famous Neville Northern powerhouse that propelled the Kingmaker and Richard III to power was something that was only possible because of a woman, and that was Joan Beaufort. A remarkable woman who deserves to have much more written and researched about her. Now, she is just one of the many captivating members of a family which burned brightly for a short period in English history. And fingers crossed that come this autumn, I will be able to share some more stories with you in person at Lichfield. In the meantime, you can still pick up my book at all good bookshops, and I would hopefully advise you, just like myself, please wash your hands, stay indoors, and let's get through this all together. Thank you.